Good morning. We've talked about doing this for quite a while, and Brother Mark called me the other day and asked me if I could come the 27th, and I said, sure, we'll make a date. So, fortunately, we're glad to be able to make it here. Like I said, we went to East Tennessee and in Western North Carolina. We started, I think we've made 5 trips total. We started out going to Bristol, Tennessee. They had a warehouse at the Bristol Motor Speedway, massive warehouse, full of supplies. And our goal was to go out there and go to the communities and help out directly there. But once we got out there, we found out that wasn't feasible because of all the entities involved. They wanted to kind of keep a track of who was there and where they were going, and so it made it kind of difficult. So we were there at Bristol and helped out at the warehouse, and we were Mr. Bryant was running the show there, him and his wife. This was a volunteer organization there at Bristol Motor Speedway. They had one gentleman, I can't remember his name, he was the security guard, so to speak, and he kept FEMA run off because FEMA kept trying to come in and take stuff from them, and he had run them off 2 or 3 times. And so it was all a private organization that ran everything there. What they would do is daily there was tractor trailer loads of stuff coming in, private donations coming in from all over the country, and they would bring them in there, offload them, and then all the little communities up in the mountains and stuff, they would call in and give them a list of what they needed, because every community had a distribution center, and they would tell them what they'd need, and the people working in the warehouse would go pull that order, and then they would stage it, and then they would either come and get it, or they had somebody there at the warehouse to take and deliver them. That's how I got into some of the communities, was being able to deliver supplies to some of these areas. And to say the least, it was an eye-opening experience to see that the absolute devastation that took place during this flood. But I'll tell you, I met some of the nicest, most down-to-earth folks you'd ever meet. And I've told several that I've never had so much trouble trying to give money away. In all, between our church and several other churches and y'all and across the country, we raised a little over $30,000. There was private individuals that bought campers or helped buy campers. We've pulled, I don't know how many out there and donated to individuals. You'll see some of them in the videos or in the pictures, and they in some of the areas, in most areas, FEMA was no-show. Or if they were there a few days, and when we talked to a lot of the people, we would ask them, if they got any assistance or anything, and they'd say no. Or it'd be $350. If we had anybody that got $750, it was rare. We went to Elk Mountain, to one of the distribution centers, and the lady that run it, her home got destroyed, just washed completely away. But she was running that center, and they had a problem with law enforcement, with the sheriff in that area, wanting to take over all the supplies. And her and another organization, they would fly supplies in. They flew all over the mountains, dropping supplies into areas that a lot of people couldn't get to with helicopters and other means. And they had 2 planes coming into that area. And the sheriff came to her and told her that as soon as them planes land, they're going to confiscate the supplies. She contacted the pilot, or I think I forgot her name, but she made a phone call, and the 2 planes turned around, went back to Ohio, and this area that they were landing, it was right at it was in Tennessee, but they, as soon as they landed back in Ohio, he got on the phone and called, he was good friends with the governor of Ohio. He called the governor's office. The governor's office in turn called the Tennessee governor. Before she left the meeting, the sheriff basically had his wings clipped because she had order in hand that he will not be able to confiscate anything, and that was in several areas that these folks were having to deal with. But one of the areas that we focused on mainly was Embryville, Tennessee. They had about 400, population-wise was around 420 people. I think they lost 12 during the floods, that were washed away. And very small community right at the base of the Cherokee Mountains. Beautiful, beautiful place. Their main business there is tourism and raising strawberries. But you'll see in these pictures, it just washed away the crop, or their soil turned to rocks, most of it. So they lost their livelihood. A lot of them did. But there's some of the people we met. I can't remember if I've got any of the pictures of one gentleman, but I'll tell you his story. But we'll get started with the videos here. This is in Irwin, Tennessee. And go ahead to the next one. This is the Interstate 29 that runs through the mountains. This is the one that got closed off for several weeks due to the flood. See in the background all the debris. It was completely across the interstate here in both directions. Next. This is the same area. All this was just completely flooded. Next. You'll see here, this is the foundation of one house that was washed away. And you'll see the dirt here and over in here. It all was just completely washed away down to rock. That's all that's left. This went all the way out, further out in here. And you'll see right here, there's another better picture of it. This is the hospital. You remember in the videos on the news where all the people are on top of the roof? This is that hospital right there. Next. And there's the hospital there. But this was all just a field and you can see what it turned into there. Next. Some more there in Irwin. Next. This is in Embryville. And if you notice right back here, this church and the steeple on it, just beautiful, beautiful setting back there. But I couldn't tell if the church got damaged or not, but you can see where this all used to be over here. The river got rerouted. Found out that they were going to have to remap all the river because it got rerouted so dramatically. Next. This area here is still in Embryville, and this road here goes back to a little community, about 15, 20 houses, goes back to Little Germany, and it dead ends at that community, and there's probably 1.5 miles or 2 miles of road that got completely washed away. They I forgot his name as well. Oh, Shane Broyles. Him and his friend who I'd met, they walked into that area to check on these folks. And for days, they would walk in and out, taking in supplies. It's the only way you get in there. And they had the county mayor and some other officials flew in a helicopter back there, and one gentleman we met, his name was Mac. I think they called him the mayor of that community, but the county mayor said they weren't going to rebuild that road. They were going to force everybody to pack it and leave. And just so happened there was a lady there. As soon as he said this, she contacted Tennessee governor, because a lot of these folks are pretty influential. But she contacted the mayor. He landed in his helicopter the next day, and he said the road would be rebuilt. And you'll see in some of these video pictures, the road was rebuilt. So but like I said, it's just an extremely beautiful place, and I would fight for it too. I mean, but next. This is some of the homes that were destroyed. They just pile them up and burn them if they couldn't get trucks to them to load them up and haul them off. Next. This is still in Embryville. We met this family here, young couple. They had just had a baby the day after the flood. Is that correct, Donna? And their home had got washed away, lost everything. They just had a baby shower and lost everything. But she said the community, they got 5 times what they had in baby stuff. They turned around and donated everything back to the communities for those that were in need. These buildings, they were 1-bedroom, bathroom, and they were furnished with couch, refrigerator, and stove, and just your very basics. Had air, heat and air. You can see it on the side of the building there. But they were bringing these in, and you had to call them. I know in North Carolina they called them temporary shelter. You couldn't call them home or anything. It was all in how you worded it. And next, this is some of the there at Irwin. Next, these were campers that were pulled in after the flood, and people were living in them. Next, this is where a home was, and just everything just took away. Next. And it just sandy silt is just everywhere. Next. And you can see how high up in these trees where debris was at. And when you're there and you're looking around, and it's just, you can't comprehend the water being that deep and that fast coming through there. Next. Like that there, it's just, you can see how tall that is. It's just unreal. Next. Some of these are duplicates, but sorry about that. This here was a concrete pillar. The soil used to come out all the way to that, and you can see that it washed it just completely away. There's a gentleman just down this road on down here. You'll see him directly. But there's a lady that lives right across the road here that we met. They had bought a brand new double wide, and they got their letter of occupancy on Wednesday. They were to move in on Friday, and then the flood hit and washed their brand new double wide away. They never got to move into it. She said a week after the flood, they found out they had flood insurance. They were the only people that we met out of all of our visits out there that we found that had flood insurance. And she didn't even know it. It was a shock to them. But I guess the mobile home company made them take out the insurance. And so they were getting a brand new double wide. But you can see how much of the land the flood took. Cause the water, it used to be all the way over to here. It's where the channel used to be. That was the edge of it. Next. That's road going back into Little Germany. Next. This driveway right here, they would bring food and everything to right here. And then Little Germany is back up in here. And they would have to walk all the way back to here to get their stuff and then walk it back. They could drive up so far, but most of them walked from there all the way back up to Little Germany. Next, this is still in Emberville, and you can see the land. It's just all this used to be houses, and just washed numerous homes away. Next. the lady that was talking about that had the double wide washed away, she'd gotten a gift card to go get something to eat wherever she wanted to go. And the restaurant they went to, where her and her husband were sitting, there was a gentleman sitting with his back to her, and she kept staring at him till her husband finally asked her, "What are you looking at?" And she said, "I'm reading his shirt." This was on the back of his shirt. And so she just kept sitting there and reading it till she memorized it. And so a few days later, she had this banner made, and she posted it out there by the road for everybody to see. And she said numerous people would stop and take pictures of it. But she said her husband thought she was looking at another feller, but she was just reading his shirt. Next. That's that same column, but next. That's Little Germany, this little community here. And this is the road that they're rebuilding. And let me see here, get my bearings on it. They fixed this part, and because it's just single lane, so they were fixing it back to where it was two lane, where two cars could meet. It's what they were doing there. But next. That's the same road there. Next. This is off of Highway 107, which is, you go through Embryville and turn left. There was a bridge that you used to go straight on. It washed the bridge out. So at this time you had to turn left to get around, go around Johnson City, Greenville area. And but there's I think it's right here. They have scissor lifts, and they were bringing all this debris into these fields, and guys were up in these scissor lifts, and they were inspecting what was in the dump trucks, because the dump trucks were great big sidewalls on them, and so they were looking to see what was in them, and then they'd tell them where to take it to in the field to dump it. And in this area, there's a church out towards the highway. The back here's where the creek was at, the river is at. And go ahead next. This lady, she'd got her little cabin. They were still working on it when we were there. There used to be a beautiful, beautiful old home, but it destroyed it. It was unlivable, and so they just had to tear it down. Next. They were living in that camper. Her brother was, I believe it was. Next. These cars, this used to be their vehicles. And all this used to be just green grass, and it's just mud. Every time it rains, it's just mud. You can see where the debris got up into the trees here. But everything, you look forever, and it's just dirt. I mean, it just. Next. This was a trailer. You can see what it done did. Just nothing but the frame. Next, her brother was living in that camper, and it was on up close toward the highway. Next, this is looking back towards right there's the highway at 107. This church right here, and you'll see there'll be another picture of it on I think on the next slide. Next, no, next, there it is. The water was up to right in through there. You're out on the highway looking back at it, and it's got a porch on the front, and the porch was nearly underwater. The doors, everything was completely submerged. But it was just, when you're up on the highway looking back at it, your mind just can't comprehend that much water being in there. But you can see the mud that they've piled up trying to get in here. But roads, you can't find roads. You just take off driving across fields of dirt, and there used to be paved roads and stuff in there. Next, these guys from Stone Steel in Cookeville, Tennessee, I talked to them, their boss, about these stoves. These are rocket stoves. They built 50 of them, donated, and we took them out and give them out to people. I contacted Lodge Cast Iron Company, and they donated 50 cast iron skillets. So they could, because most everybody didn't have any electricity or anything, so they could use these to cook on or heat water on and stuff. They were thrilled to death to get these stoves, and they had a grate that sit on top of them that they could set their skillet or pots or whatever on, or use them to keep warm by or whatever. Next, that's them right there. And if you've never seen one, this is where your wood goes in. That draft's right there, and that's where you heat that. Next, that's Bristol Motor Speedway, where we're staying at. This was a parking lot. They were all volunteers. If you had a camper or tent or whatever, they took you up there and let you stay up in that parking lot. Next. I believe that was up in Elk Park, I'm sorry. Next. This was a couple in, this lady, this is her uncle. But that's one of the stoves we gave them in one of the skillets. We also gave them financial donations as well. They had a small camper is what they were staying in. Next, that's their home. It was piled up right outside. Their camper was right over here, but that's their home. Next. Next. That's the rest of their home. Next. Next. That's their car. Next. This is other homes. Like I said, they just pile them up. Next, that's there in Embryville. Next, I don't know why the video's not wanting to. This was on the road going up to Little Germany. The road turned right and went up, and this lady and another couple lived up there. Gave them a stove. Next, this gentleman here gave him stove and financial assistance. His home got destroyed. From the back of his house to the water's edge was about 200 yards. After the flood, the water's edge was about 50 feet of his house. That was all that was left. And he was leaving. He was not staying around. So, but he couldn't take it. Next. That's the house I was talking about a while ago that they replaced with the little cabin. This little lady here, she gave her some assistance, and when I first tried to give her the assistance, she refused it. She said she had everything she needed. She said there were people that needed it worse than she did. And that's all she had. She's living in that camper right there. And that was all she had. No insurance. And she said, I appreciate it, but she said, there's people worse shape than me. And it shocked me, that most everybody I met, that was how they were. They never, got people to take money, but she finally did. I told her, I said, ma'am, I said, this is, a lot of churches have donated, to this cause, and this is the Lord's money that for y'all to use to do what you need to do with, because y'all have lost everything. Clothes on her back, and so she finally relented and took the assistance. But sweet lady. Next. 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 Some of these got duplicated. Next. 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 And back to the next. Next. This field here, this was a crop field, and it's just dirt and rock, or silt. It's just crops are ruined, the fields were ruined because they can't grow anything on this. Next, because it's like sand, and they just can't do nothing with it. Next. 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 This was a paved drive right here, paved road. Next. Next. There's the water line. washed up. Next. Next. I think this is in Asheville. Next. Next. This is in Swananoa. Next. The story on these, when I got over to Swananoa, North Carolina, I was driving around looking at the damage and everything, and Highway 70, the old Highway 70, I had went on it, and the creek that was flooded runs between Highway 70 and I can't remember that other road, but there's two roads and a creek runs between them. But on the old Highway 70, there was a gentleman, they were building the tiny buildings, and I stopped and talked to them. They had, I think, 7 buildings ready to go to be delivered, and they would have, stove and refrigerator and lights and stuff in them. And he said, we got 7 ready to be delivered, but we don't have no generators. He said, we're short on them. I said, because I'd asked him what they needed, and that's what he told me they were short on. I drove up to Black Mountain, which is not too far from about 5 miles or so. Went up to Tractor Supply, and I bought what they had and brought them back and gave them to him. And then the next place I found that had them was back in Irwin, Tennessee. And I told him, I said, I'll be back in a little while. And I made a phone call to friends of ours we went to church with, and so they called over Tractor Supply, and I can't remember how many they paid for, but I paid for some more when I got back over there. And when I got them loaded, I had to stop and get gas. And I just finished fueling up, and I can hear this voice behind me and just fussing because couldn't get his card to work at the pump. And I started over to see if I could help him. And he started walking toward me, and I said, "You having trouble with your card?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, let me see if I can help you with it." And he looked at my truck, and he said, "Are you here helping with the flood victims?" And I said, "Yes, sir." And he said, "Well, I just want to pray with you right here." And so he put his arm around me, and we stood right there in the gas station parking lot and had prayer. And he said, "I can't thank you enough for being out here helping." But that, and that's how the folks there were. But it took his mind off what he was doing. After that, he quit fussing about his card not working. But I think we wound up with 10 or 12 generators, and they delivered. There was 7 or 8 people got a warm place to stay that weekend because they delivered them once they got the generators. Next. This was the place they were building them. Next. 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 That was that we took some of them. Next. And this was their building they were doing. Next. They were just simple, nothing fancy, just a warm place to get. Next. 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 They would order them. This was the floors. So they would order whoever they were getting stuff from, but they would bring them in just like that right there. And they were building 4 or 6 a day. And they had volunteers, they would stay there, and they had it fixed up where they could stay right there on site. And had a shower house and everything for them, and little old bitty corner lot. And they were pumping them things out. Next. Next. This is there in Swananoa, and this is another group, Savage Freedom is the name of their group. It's ex-military guys, and they had it going on. They had all kinds of heavy equipment. They would go out and clear roads and get lots ready to bring buildings in, because these little green buildings, they had somebody that was building them, and so they would get the stuff ready. The other place take and deliver them, and but all these campers was where their helpers were staying. This trip, I got asked. I was back at home in Gainesboro, and Heather Kamasa had called, said she had somebody that needed a trailer delivered. And I said, I'll go get it. So I drove to Sevierville, that's where it was picked up, where it was at. And I pulled it over to this group, and they were gonna deliver it to, because they had a big list of people that needed stuff. And but once I got it over there, it needed some work. So they were letting a guy stay in it, and he was fixing it up in order for it to be delivered in good working order. So next, this same site. Next. Next. That was their headquarters. Next. Next. That Wildwood was the camper I had pulled over there. Next. Next. That was in Black Mountain. They got hit pretty hard. I never did find where a lot of the damage was at. The place I was staying, they had damage down in a lot of the buildings, stores and stuff was damaged pretty bad there in Black Mountain. Next, this is James and his daughter. They were living in an apartment in a barn, and they'd been living there for quite a while. They had it fixed up real nice, and but the flood took it. The water was up above the doors, and so when the flood started, he would go out and he'd check the roads and stuff, and he finally started loading his car, but then it wouldn't start. And some neighbor boys up the road, they were driving up and down the road on four-wheelers, in four-wheel drives and stuff. And he stopped one of them and asked that they push his car, take their truck and push his car back up beside the barn up this old log road just to get it out of the water. And their response to him was that he should have left earlier. And so he managed to get it back where he didn't lose it, but it was a mess. But that was his neighborly love he got from them. Next. Oh, is that it? I had some others that I delivered a camper to them that a couple bought from Indiana. They wired the money and which we had some funds left over. We helped with it, but they got a camper, took it down there to them. Their mom and dad's home was a 2-story brick, old, well over 100 years old. And between the windows on the first floor and the windows on the second floor, the water was between the windows. It was unreal. He said that was like the second or third time the house had been flooded. And he told me, he said, go in there and look at it. Went in there and they had already had the floors all stripped down to the joist. But up to the floor joist, it was filled with mud. And they had already mucked all that out and bucket at a time, 5-gallon bucket at a time. They had boards laid out where they could bring a wheelbarrow in, and they had scooped up a 5-gallon bucket, pour it in the wheelbarrow, and wheel it out. And so they finally got it all cleaned out. There was a gentleman there in Embryville, Mr. Tittle is his name. First time I met him, I asked him about their situation and if FEMA had been there. And he said, yeah, but he said they didn't do anything. He said they didn't help out or anything. I said, well, what's your situation? And he had the biggest grin on his face. And he was standing there and he looked down and he said, well, he said, I got a new pair of boots. I got a new pair of pants. I got a new shirt and new suspenders. He said, I got all I need. And just biggest smile on his face. He said, good Lord has provided me everything I need. His son and daughter, all three of them lived on this one road. His son was at the end of the road. His daughter was next. And then his house, him and his wife's house. The son and daughter, both of their homes got washed away. His house, him and his wife's house got water plumb up the ceiling. But it ruined everything. I saw a video of him on a backhoe with a boat behind it, and they went down to his daughter's house before it washed away. When they got down there, water was up probably halfway up on the wheels. She was in there about 5 minutes getting pets and getting a few other items. Come back out and the water is coming over the hood of this backhoe, and he's headed out there with it. And he had told his daughter, or the other boy that was on the backhoe with him, he said, we ain't gonna make it. But he kept on plugging along with that old backhoe, and they got out of there. It's eerie when you see it. I wish I had it, but just watching them and listening to them talk about it, it was something. I mean, there's another video on YouTube of TWRA. If you get a chance, pull it up. The Helene flood. and they done a rescue, and they launched off Mr. Tittle's road, went over to another house, and rescued a guy and his 2 dogs. And it's a very dramatic rescue because they just nearly got washed away. My wife and I had gone, we were riding around just going down roads, came up on this one house that they had gutted the inside of it and had it rewired. We pull up and this car is sitting in the driveway, and the gentleman is sitting in the driver's seat. And I went over and started talking to him and asked him about his situation. And he said that his brother used to live there with him. And he said his brother called him at work, said water's rising. And he's going to leave, getting ready to leave. Went out to, had a great big garage out beside the house. And went out and got in his Jeep to leave. It wouldn't start. And so he called his brother back, and he said, I can't get the Jeep started. So I've got his name, Mr. Cloyd. Steve Cloyd is the one that was trying to leave. And so his brother was leaving work, going to come help him get things started, to get out of there. Due to the flooding, every road he tried to come down was cut off, so he couldn't get to him. And by the time he did get there, the garage was gone. And Mr. Steve Cloyd had been washed away. They found him in June. He was the last one from that community that was missing. And they had hunted for quite a long time, well, from October till June. And there's a video on YouTube, watched it last night, and they were at the house having a celebration of life for him. But they were thrilled to be able to have him back. And I didn't know, but if any of these people that passed away, if they had life insurance, the family couldn't collect until they had recovered the body. So it was important, in that aspect, because they otherwise, they lost everything. Plus, they couldn't do anything with the properties, and but that was our experience going out there and getting to meet these folks. But like I said, they were just some of the most humble. Just to lose everything. If you can picture it in your mind, having the clothes you got on your back, and that's all you got. It's all you got. And just being thankful to God that that's what you got. And they weren't bitter. Wasn't bitter at all. They were just thrilled to death to be able to stand there and talk to you. And anybody got any questions?
How many total, did you ever hear how many total actually lost their life?
Between Tennessee and North Carolina, I've somewhere around 300, 350, I think, something like that. But I've also heard that they was in Asheville along the river, that there was a huge homeless camp that they don't know how many was in it, and they ain't even counting them. They don't know how many was there. But that's the number, you know, that they can account for. But if you get a chance to drive over that way and just go to these little communities, it just, the remnants of the destruction is still there. And a lot of the volunteers have left. There are still areas that need rebuilding, and Hot Springs community, it's a beautiful little area. It's right at the bottom of the mountain. You go down one side, turn left, go about a quarter mile and turn right and go back up the mountain. It was devastating. But at any rate, anybody else got any questions? If not, that's all